Well, going straight to the top story of the day, the International Court of Justice is set to hold a public hearing tomorrow in the case pertaining to the conviction of former Indian Navy officer Kulbhushan Jadhav. In the latest on the issue, Pakistan has refused to accept the International Court's jurisdiction on matters of its national security or under the purview of its domestic jurisdiction. Earlier, the ICJ stayed Jadhav's death sentence by a Pakistani military tribunal after an appeal by India. It will hold its first hearing on Monday at New Delhi's request. India moved the matter to International Court after its 16 requests for consular access were denied by Pakistan. India will build its case by accusing Pakistan of violating the Vienna Convention by denying consular access to an Indian citizen. India will also argue that since Jadhav did not have the benefit of counsel, the trial conducted against him is invalid. Well, to discuss more on this, we have Rachit Ranjan, a lawyer, joining us right here in our WION studios. Thank you, Rachit. Also joining us live, Raghavendra Rao, WION's correspondent from the newsroom. We have Kamar Chima as well, who is a senior journalist from Islamabad. First of all, Rachit, I'll come straight to you. As far as the ICJ hearing is concerned, and now we understand that very strong arguments will be put forth tomorrow. 90 minutes will be given to each party, is what is being told to us. But at the same time, an ICJ decision, a verdict, is not really binding. So how important is it really? Because when the announcement came that the ICJ has stayed the execution of Jadhav, there were loud cheers across the country. The government too was very happy with it. But the work is not over. So as far as the ICJ hearing goes, how crucial is it really that it's starting tomorrow?
So a few points of clarification over here. So it was just, technically a stay wasn't given by the ICJ. It was more a request from the President of the International Court of Justice under Article 74(4) of the rules of the ICJ. That does not constitute as provisional measures itself. It is merely a request, and if Pakistan wanted, it had the opportunity to disregard that request at the risk of moral censure from the international community. The hearing that will take place tomorrow will be in relation to the provisional measures that have been sought by India in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case, particularly in relation to the violation of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations that has taken place over here. So what we can expect tomorrow to happen is, first, both parties are going to discuss the jurisdiction of the ICJ, and here India has a very, very strong case because it has moved the jurisdiction under the optional protocol of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relationship. And there has been no reservation made by either party towards that compulsory jurisdiction under this convention. The second, I think, the defense that can be claimed by Pakistan over here is that because this is a matter related to espionage, domestic laws take precedence over international law, which is absolutely not tenable under international law, because you cannot derogate from international law obligations by citing domestic law. And the second defense that Pakistan can claim over here is that there is an existing 2008 bilateral agreement on consular relations, and this matter should be discussed under that. But since India has asserted its claims under the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, the 2008 bilateral agreement will not be considered by the ICJ, in my opinion, because it is something that supplements an existing treaty, does not modify the rights and obligation under that particular treaty to a great extent.
So what you're saying is, in such a situation, the international law will supersede your domestic?
Absolutely.
We'll quickly take that question to Mr. Kamar Chima, senior journalist joining us from Islamabad, who had also joined us earlier. Mr. Chima, your reaction to that? You had earlier put across a point that this is a domestic issue for Pakistan, and Pakistan does not really have to listen to what the ICJ says and does not accept ICJ's jurisdiction on the matter. But we have Mr. Rachit Ranjan here, who's a lawyer, who states that international law will supersede it. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I'm not a journalist, by the way, and I'm not a lawyer. Since my perspective is like under Article 36(2) of the International Court of Justice, ICJ does not have jurisdiction if any action has been taken in self-defense or there has been an aggression. So this is Pakistan's perspective that that Kulbhushan Jadhav was here to foment insurgency. So that is very much clear. As the honorable lawyer sitting in your panels is saying that Pakistan-India Agreement of Consular Access 2008, that is very much clear. There is Article 6 in it, which says that right of consular access should be subject to discretion in situation where arrest should be on political and security basis on grounds. So this gentleman has been caught on security grounds, so the right of access of consular access cannot be given as per the bilateral agreement. That is very much important. That needs to be understood. One more important point is that consular officials are guaranteed access if the person is convicted of ordinary crimes, and that is not a civilian. So this person is, first of all, is a military official serving a naval officer who has been caught red-handed. So under any circumstances, even under international humanitarian law, he does not come into purview of it. So I think India has no ground to take that matter into ICJ, but definitely India has an avenue to go there. All avenues should be open for everyone. As India is a member of international community, so is Pakistan. But I think India's case is very much weak, and Pakistan has been, and I think it took India one complete year to reach ICJ. Had India some valid point, rather making 16 attempts, India should have gone to ICJ directly, but India knew its case is very weak. But personally, in Pakistan, there is opinion India is playing to the gallery, to making its public aware that it will try anything to save son of soil. So, but I think that will be futile.
Let's bring in Raghavendra Rao here. Well, Raghavendra Rao, we understand that you're listening to the arguments being put forth by Kamar Chima, who states that it seems like the Indian administration is playing to the gallery and has unnecessarily delayed this entire process, waited for over a year, waited for its consular access appeals to be rejected almost 16 times. What do you really have to say to that? Did India really unduly delay this?
Well, Nishchita, as far as the Indian response to this entire episode is concerned, India has been going strictly by the book. And in diplomatic channels, in matters related to international diplomacy, that is what responsible countries generally do. They follow the procedures laid down by the book. Now, India, as soon as it got to know that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav has been apprehended, arrested by the Pakistani authorities, the next logical step for the Indian authorities was to seek consular access to him. That was sought, that was denied, and after that it was sought repeatedly and repeatedly denied. Now, all through this, there was no hint or there was no communication that Mr. Jadhav was being put through a military trial, that too a secret trial, and one fine day the Pakistan government comes out with a press release saying Mr. Jadhav has been found guilty and now he has to be sentenced to death. Now, what India had been doing till that time was following the process. An Indian national had been taken prisoner in Pakistan. India was seeking access to it. How can India be expected to respond to charges that he's a raw agent, he's a spy, he was there to conduct subversive activities, if you do not even allow access to the Indian authorities to meet this gentleman? So, going strictly by the book, India was trying to get access to this person, Mr. Jadhav, which was denied, and it was only the trigger was actually the sentencing and this announcement in a very abrupt manner, that too through a press release. And this is what the Indian government has also argued before the ICJ, that there was not even a formal communication from the Pakistani side to the Indian side saying that Mr. Jadhav had been found guilty and sentenced to death. It was through a press release which the Indian government was informed in a way or got to know in a way. Right. So, you know, it's not such a simplistic matter as to say that what was India doing for all this while. India was seeking access. They were following procedure. That access was being rejected, but as per procedure, one can again seek consular access. That is precisely what India was doing. Now, when India has seen that Mr. Jadhav has been sentenced and, you know, the matter has become further, it has become more grave, that was the next logical step. I mean, approaching the ICJ was the next logical step.
Right, Mr. Kamar Chima, I'll quickly come to you. Do you think that Pakistan followed due diligence in the trial that that Jadhav was put through?
Well, I think Pakistan has given all kind of an access to Kulbhushan Jadhav. First, he was caught on March 3rd, 2016. It took one complete year for Yadav to explain his case that the Pakistan gave him all the right to express
But he
his
was not given a
perspective.
counsel. How did he explain his case? He was not given a counsel.
How is that possible that a person is being tried
Why was
even
he
the
secretly?
terrorist,
He was
even the
secretly
terrorist-
tried in a military court. He was secretly
Yes,
tried in a military
because-
court. There was
yes,
no news
let me
of
tell
it.
you.
Yes.
Let me tell you, even the terrorists, the Taliban, who are being caught in Pakistan, and the Pakistan military courts give them consular access. This is very much clear, one. Second, in case of Kulbhushan Jadhav, he was a Indian, he was a spy, he was caught in a position where he's trying to foment insurgency in Pakistan and he's accepted. So it's the Pakistan Military Act, Article 57 of Pakistan Military Act and Article 3 of the Pakistan Security Act of 1923 that gives the right to the Pakistan military to take any action or to try a person in the military court. So I think there has not been any kind of, and one more thing that is very important point. If he has been tried in a Pakistan military court, then he has a 45 days time to appeal again into the court. One, he can go to the Pakistan High Court, he can go to the Pakistan Supreme Court, to the Pakistani president. And I think your foreign minister has rightly said that they will appeal to the Pakistani president. But the point is that Pakistan has given him all kinds of rights. And one, he will go into the higher courts, Kulbhushan Jadhav will go in Pakistan. He will tell that he has been given the right of the consul. So there is no point in it. And I think everyone has been given the right, even as I mentioned, the terrorists who have been caught here in Pakistan, who have been killing our children, we gave them even the right to have a consul. So there's no point in it.
But don't you think that there was a lack of transparency in the trial? There was no news of it. There was no communication to India about it. An Indian is being made to go through the trial. There was no communication at all, and it came through a press release, as Raghavendra Rao pointed out.
Well, the very much important point is that India must not forget the agreements which India has done. If India really accepts the law, then Pakistan-India agreement on consular access 21 May 2008, Article 6 is very much clear that the access cannot be denied if the person has been caught on political and security reasons. So I think there is no point in demanding an access, and how to demand an access if the person was here to foment an insurgency, one, and how the person, and then there is a Diplomatic and Consular Privilege Act of 1972. Pakistan cannot give an access to Kulbhushan Jadhav. And there are many precedents. Even there is a Medellin versus Texas case in which a Mexican person was caught in the United States, and the United States Supreme Court even rejected ICJ's perspective and upheld these death sentence of a person. So I think India has no ground, in fact, at any point to demand even a consular access when India can violate its own agreement, which it has done with Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Cheema. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Let's also tell our viewers that Mandy Clark joins us live from Hague as the WION correspondent who has been closely tracking. But we'll go back to her in just a bit. I'd like to take Mr. Rachit's reaction to that before that. Mr. Rachit, do you feel that laws are not really favoring India in seeking consular access? How does it work really? If you could throw more light on that.
Not at all. In fact, when Mr. Cheema refers to Article 36(2) and the defense of self-defense, what we have to understand over here is the claim for jurisdiction under Article 36 is not strong in any case, because India has made specific reservations in referring of disputes which relate to Commonwealth parties. But here, India has also claimed jurisdiction against the with the optional Protocol 1 of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relation, where no such exceptions have been observed by the parties. So as far as establishing jurisdiction of the ICJ is concerned, the jurisdiction will be established under the optional protocol of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, and such has been done in past cases as well, whether it's Paraguay versus the United States, whether it's Germany versus the United States, or Mexico versus the United States. In all such cases, under Optional Protocol 1, compulsory jurisdiction has been established. Going to the second point that Mr. Cheema raised about the 2008 bilateral agreement and the specific article under that Article 6, I would refer Mr. Cheema to Article 41 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, where when you look at interpretation between a larger treaty and a bilateral treaty, nothing should modify the object and purpose of the original treaty. And if Article 6 goes on to state that, my assumption is that this modifies the object and purpose of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations significantly, and Vienna Convention on Consular Relations will take precedence in this matter.
Right. Let's quickly go across to Mandy Clark on that note. Well, Mandy, you have been at Hague, and tomorrow the hearing, the all-important hearing, is all set to begin. But something that we have raised here is the ICJ. It can give a decision after its hearings for a period that it will go on. It could last for a year or more than that. How binding is it really for Pakistan or India, if we do consider that if the decision of the ICJ goes in favor of India, how binding and how much of it can be imposed on Pakistan?
Well, it's not binding at all. You know, there's many big powers that have actually ignored the International Court of Justice ruling. It's more that it's a international spotlight on this issue, and there would be a lot of just natural pressure to adhere by it, to get the respect and the understanding of the international community. So whether if Pakistan chooses to completely ignore it, there is no legal fallout for it. However, there is ramifications, of course, in the international community, and that might be a reason why you would adhere to their rulings. Of course, there is big powers in the past, like China, the United States, and Japan, have ignored International Court of Justice rulings in the past. So it doesn't mean that Pakistan will be bound to it at all.
If it means that the countries are not bound to it, so what is really the importance of tomorrow's hearing, if you can throw more light on that?
The importance really is putting that international spotlight. It's going to a third party, a neutral party, and having the arguments ruled in a neutral court. So it's important that way, and it does have the eyes and ears of the rest of the world. So certainly people will be watching and waiting to see how respectful the countries are with the ruling and their appreciation of respecting this international law.
Right, Mandy, stay with us. We'll take that to Raghavendra Rao. In fact, well, Raghavendra Rao, something that we have discussed previously too, by approaching the ICJ, India has basically brought the issue out at an international level. It is in the notice of multiple international agencies, countries as well. So what really could be the bearing on Pakistan or India to act and abide by the ruling of the ICJ?
Well, Nishita, as Mandy rightly pointed out, a ruling is not necessarily binding, and if it goes in favor of India, it is not necessarily binding on Pakistan. But here, you know, just by the very act of taking this case to the ICJ, India has also made, you know, a point wherein it wants the international community to see and know the kind of things which are playing out between these two countries. Now, this person in question, Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav, as per Indian authorities, he's a naval officer. He's a retired naval officer who was doing business in Iran, and he was abducted from Iran by the Pakistani authorities. The Pakistani claim is that he was arrested from within Pakistan. He was there to conduct subversive activities in Karachi and Balochistan, and then they tried him in this military trial, a court-martial, and have awarded him a death sentence. Now, by bringing this entire case to the ICJ, India is trying to showcase the manner in which this entire trial was conducted in Pakistan, the mystery shrouding this trial. I mean, nobody got a wind of it when this trial began, what the charges were, where is the charge sheet wherein all these charges have been detailed point by point. India has been seeking that charge sheet for a while now. It is yet to get that. So the idea behind taking this case to the ICJ is also to expose, the so-called kangaroo courts which are functioning in Pakistan in the name of military courts. So it's a larger issue. Kulbhushan Jadhav is the immediate provocation and reason, but in taking this case to the ICJ, India is also trying to make a larger point.
Right. In fact, Rachit, I'll come to you now. We saw Mr. Kamar Chima went on to state that due diligence was followed, protocol was followed. He was given a counsel as opposed to multiple reports that have come to the fore. But the fact that the ICJ, based on the application of India and the proof that we have submitted so far, has stayed the execution of Jadhav, does it go on to say that India has substantial proof to prove that the norms were not followed, the due diligence was not done?
Again, just to clarify, the stay has not been given just yet. It is just a request from the President to stop the execution till there is a public hearing on the matter. The hearings on the stay will take place tomorrow. But as far as what Mr. Chima is referring to, I would direct everyone to the findings of the International Commission of Jurists, which is an international body comprising of scholars who focus on the field of international law. And they have written a very, very scathing piece about how Pakistani military courts function. It is a travesty to call it a court. There is no independence in terms of having judges over there. There is no legal representation given to the victim, the culprit, the so-called culprit over there. And more importantly, there are no set procedures and rules about the admissibility of evidence in such courts. So it's, in a way, summary of a summary trial, which no one knows about. It's a secret hearing. No one has the opportunity to debate it in a manner that normally you would do with any matters like this in civil courts. The second thing that I would like to bring out over here is the impact that something like this would have in the international community. Now, legally speaking, the order of the ICJ is binding on the parties, both the provisional measure and the final verdict that comes. And this flows from Article 41 of the ICJ statute, which says that ICJ can indicate provisional measures. And under Article 94 of the UN Charter, it says that the UN can, any order of the ICJ shall be binding on the parties. So legally speaking, this is binding, but because the ICJ lacks any implementation mechanism, that's why the
execution of
other parties have breached obligations in the past. Having said that, that is a luxury that has been enjoyed by countries like the United States, which pull a significant weight before the international community. In the case of Pakistan, you're looking at a country which goes to the international fora to cry foul over Kashmir repeatedly and tries to get international support on that.
We're running short of time, so let's quickly go across to Mandy. Mandy, now tomorrow is the big day, of course. So if you can just throw more light on what we can expect, the technicalities of it, what time it starts, and by when will we see both sides come in, how much time will they be given to put forward for their cases? If you can just throw more light on that.
Well, the case starts around 10:30 local time, so that's around 1 o'clock Indian Standard Time, and they get around an hour and a half, and India is going to put its arguments first, then there's a couple hours break, and then Pakistan has to go a bit later on, around 6:30 India time. So, and they both get equal amounts of time to really argue their case. Then it will be up to the judges to make a decision on their arguments. Both sides have been working very long hours, doing their case. We've heard from some Pakistani sources inside The Hague that they felt they didn't have a lot of time to prepare their case. They were only given a couple of days, so they've been working day and night to present a robust and logical defense, but they're keeping quiet about exactly what their strategy is. India is quite confident in their position too, so it'll be quite interesting to hear both sides.
Right, definitely. Thank you, Mandy, for joining us, and we look forward to your continuous coverage that starts tomorrow, since the hearing will begin tomorrow. Mr. Kamar Chima, lastly, we're completely run short of time, but any closing thoughts on the matter?
Well, the closing thoughts are that India asking for a compulsory jurisdiction under Article 36(2) of the ICJ, but the ICJ does not have jurisdiction if action has been taken in self-defense or
right,
in aggression.
Mr.
So
Chima, you're repeating the same point that you made earlier.
That is the most important
we understand,
point. That's the important point.
Yes,
ICJ cannot stop Pakistan, whatever Pakistan wants to do.
Well, the hearing will start tomorrow, and we have a lot more developments to look forward to. Thank you to all our guests for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Chima. Thank you, Mr. Ranjit. Thank you, Raghavendra, as well as Mandy, for joining us today and sharing all your inputs with us. With that, it's a wrap on this special broadcast. News and updates will continue on WION all through the day. Stay tuned.